Hi, my name is Stephen Kelly. I'll be presenting my new public library initiative on Teen Science Expo for Aurora Public Library in the Denver metro region. The genesis of my initiative came from my decision-making assignment, but it also lies in a personal passion of mine, STEM education. A 2022 report from the National Science Board indicates some troubling news. The US is falling behind in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, in terms of both K through 12 education measures and career placement. I'm far from a doomsayer, but this trend isn't something we can afford as a society. Certainly not with dire challenges looming on the horizon in terms of energy, food production, healthcare, climate change, and more. We need a robust STEM-trained labor force in our younger generations. So the National Science Board report had some goals to help reduce this trend, such as improving STEM education at the K through 12 level, increasing participation in STEM fields of study and careers, and building a strong STEM labor force by training and educating domestic talent. And this is something that Aurora Public Library can actually help with, and something honestly that all libraries across the country can. Another thing that came up in my decision-making assignment was thinking about some of the unique parts of what Colorado has to offer, and specifically the Denver metro region. So Aurora is a really STEM-rich city. It's the headquarters of several really big STEM-focused private companies like Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, and Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and also government agencies like the US Space Force, the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, universities like the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus and CU Denver, and other interesting things like Colorado's Parks and Wildlife Agency. So there are a lot of opportunities for partnerships that aren't often available, and it's something that we should absolutely take advantage of. And a library, again, can help do this, especially when it comes to helping create those partnerships. There's actually a lot of literature that supports STEM in public libraries. Of course, there's lots of in-house STEM programming that happens. It's popular nationwide. But Fitzpatrick points out that there's a lot of room for growth by involving community partners. So sure, lots of public libraries have like engineering challenge programs, but think about how much more dynamic and engaging it could be if we actually had an engineering firm that comes and help us with that. Another thing the literature points out, Hopwood and Fitzpatrick in particular, is that librarians don't need to be STEM experts. We just need to bring passion, an open mind, and leave the expertise to our community partners. So those community partnerships, they're really critical for helping secure funding, resources, and even volunteers, according to Hopwood. And interestingly enough, these partnerships are mutually beneficial and have a proven track record of success, according to Fitzpatrick. There's also an interesting precedent for successful partnerships between public libraries and institutions of higher education. Overby and others indicated several programs that were happening in the state of Ohio between Ohio State University and others and public libraries there. And that led to a lot of really interesting outcomes. Sharma identifies 6 characteristics of successfully integrating STEM into public libraries. First is fostering excitement, interest, and motivation. Second, helping users actually apply knowledge and concepts instead of just reading. Third is experimentation and using the scientific method. Fourth is giving people a time to actually reflect about the process. Fifth is encouraging collaboration with others using the language and tools of the scientific trade. And finally, helping users discover science as a genuine part of their identity, that they can become scientists someday. So in light of what Sharma has said and what the rest of the literature has to say about STEM and libraries, I've got this interesting idea I would really love to see Aurora Public Library do a science exposition. This would be an opportunity for students to work on a science project or experiment over a long period of time and enter it into a competitive expo. I'm thinking there could be two parts to this structure, both a traditional exhibition in our library's community room space at the central branch. And I don't like to use the word science fair because I don't think that engenders a lot of excitement among teens. So expo is a much better term. And the second part of the structure would be a TEDx style event where students could dynamically showcase and present their projects. Depending on what kind of interest we get from the student community in Aurora, I'd hope to get a lot. We might have to establish an application process to vet entries. I think that we want to aim for like 10 finalists just for space concerns and time concerns on the night and day of the expo. Of course, a huge thread throughout this presentation has been the importance of community partnerships. And I think that for the expo, we want to foster several key community partnerships. One between local science companies and the library to help set up scholarship prizes. I'd love to be able to set these up to where we could have first prize be $5,000, second prize $2,500, third prize $1,000. I'd obviously take more. It just depends on what we're able to coax out of our private company partners. Second, I want to partner with Aurora Public Schools, their science teachers, for equipment, just general student support, and their technical and subject expertise. And third, I'd like to partner with local colleges and universities, even extension offices, for faculty and professional support and mentorships as these students are working on their projects. Well, the library is not bringing the scientific expertise necessarily, but there's a lot that we can do for the expo. We can coordinate those community partnerships. We can provide some materials to help reduce barriers to participation, especially those classic cardboard trifold presentation boards, and offsetting the cost of paper and printing to put on those boards. The library can apply for grants to help offset any costs, and Anderton reports that these are actually feasible to secure. Of course, we can supply all kinds of resources to help the students do their research. They might not have access to a lot of databases or academic materials through their school library or privately, but the library has access to those databases, and we can access pretty much anything through an interlibrary loan or through a consortium like Prospector or Mobius. I think it would be cool too to do project consultations with the students, have reference librarians or programming librarians be able to sit down and talk with them about their progress, maybe in a less intimidating way than they would have to face with their mentor or a private business partnership. Naturally, we'll also provide space and amenities for the expo. And one thing that Fitzpatrick made a real point of mentioning is that the library is going to be expected to do most of the marketing and promotion. And that's something that's absolutely within our wheelhouse, working with our marketing and communications team. So here's a simple matrix of our space supply needs and how that affects the budget for the expo. Naturally, we need the community room space to host the expo and presentation event, which you already have. And we can have our library staff and our facilities crew set up for minimal cost. We have the tables and the tablecloths and the chairs. We already own those. Being able to supply meeting rooms and computer labs for student mentor meetings. Again, we already have this, and these can be reserved. Access to our research and collections, which again, we already own. It's just part of our normal operations. The trifold presentation boards would be something we need to get our hands on, but they're relatively inexpensive. We can get a 24-pack of them for, $160. The paper and printing service, as I mentioned previously, this would come out of just our normal operations budget. Wouldn't be an additional cost. These last two elements are a bit more cost prohibitive. I'd love to offer refreshments for the expo, and nothing fancy. Water, tea, coffee, some cookies, meat and vegetable trays, something like that, which I've estimated to be at about $1,000 for 100 people. And finally, thank you packages for our community partners. Thinking a book like Graphic Science, it's a really great graphic novel that we could give them, and any additional library swag. I'd estimate if we are shooting for like 30 community partners, that might run about $750 for the book and the library swag we just have. All this for a grand total of about $2,000. This might be a low ball. I'm sure there's other things that I'm not thinking about that we would have to pay for, but I think that this really makes up the bulk of it. So after the expo, I think that it's important for the library to follow up with students. We want to help them work on, for instance, college application essays, resumes, giving them interview tips, and critically helping the students stay connected with the companies who are partners for any kinds of recommendations they might need, internships. Think about what a college application would look like if you had a recommendation from an engineer at Lockheed Martin. That would just be amazing. It would be interesting if we could to check in with them as they continue their post-secondary education too, to see what it was, if maybe Expo had any part of their own scientific journey. And then I would want to, more or less immediately after the Expo, collect personal narratives for use in any internal and external library reports that we could use to advertise the program in the future. Naturally, evaluation is a big part of any initiative, and I would think that measures of our success of the Expo would be thinking about how many participants we were able to get, and who knows, maybe we'll have a lot of interest and we'd have to go through that application process. Another measure would be comparing the actual budget with what we expected and seeing how close we were on the mark there. Of course, post-program surveys for students, for parents, and for the community partners. And then, like I mentioned before, some long-term follow-up, thinking about how the Expo may have affected their future career choices. It goes without saying that such an initiative would come with no small number of challenges. There's no guarantee we can get community partners to fund the scholarships and be mentors, though the literature seems to think that this is something we can do. But again, we can't guarantee it. There's always an issue with brand new programs getting past that inertia stage and getting the ball rolling. Student recruitment could be a challenge, and again, recruitment just generally with community partners. Time concerns could be an issue. These kinds of projects really take some time to develop, and that includes student time, staff time, and community partner time. STEM can sometimes just be hard. And there's a reason that well, there's lots of reasons, right? Why we're sort of lacking in the US with our STEM education and our STEM careers. But I think a big part of it is that it's difficult. And that's why it's so important to have these kinds of support networks in place. But overcoming just that difficulty is a challenge. And then staff buy-in, it could be tough. I'm thinking about how librarians are just traditionally, arts and humanities people, and they might approach this kind of project with some trepidation, but that would be something that I would work really hard to get past. Overall, at the end of the day, what I'd really love to see happen with this initiative is I want to see teens get excited about STEM and see it as something they can actually do in the future as a career. It's not only pays dividends to the community, but to the students themselves. I mean, Sharma reports that people with STEM degrees will end up making almost twice what's the median wage for the rest of the regular workforce. So there's financial benefits there. I would love to see this increase our circulation and use statistics for our STEM resources. Always, libraries are interested in that. Perhaps the biggest two, though, are here at the end, is helping the library forge stronger relationships with these community partners for other kinds of things in the future. The library can't survive without that support from the community. And finally, that involves just our stakeholders, people who fund the library. I think that this kind of project has a lot of potential to show them that Aurora Public Library has a lot more to offer than just books and entertainment. There's real demonstrable value here to what the library can do in terms of helping society and helping people find real great career options in the future. And of course, this is also what I want to see. I want to see teens in the library who are excited and smiling and just really giving a lot of energy to our space. Ultimately, that's what this is all about, is just helping people. Well, that's all I've got for today. Here is a list of my references. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that this might have inspired you to think about how you might incorporate more STEM into your own public library work. Thanks, and have a great day.